Today, I'm going to finally fulfill a promise that I made to our lovely neighbour when I told him I would make him a jelly slice. I won't tell you how long ago that was. Much too long ago. I'm sorry, I'm slack. But you already knew that. You live next door to me. Okay, to start with, it's a jelly slice. So it's one of those things that we used to have at stalls, fundraising stalls. You would get homemade lamingtons, you'd get jelly slice, hedgehog, all those sorts of things. And this is one that he particularly likes. I remember him telling me. So to start with, I have processed an entire packet of Marie biscuits or Marie biscuits, depending where you went to school, into fine breadcrumbs. If you don't have a processor of any kind, pop it in a plastic bag and thump the heck out of it with a rolling pin. To that, I am adding 180 grams of melted butter. So actually, I will use my trusty plastic spatula because I'm going to need that to spread it in the container. Now, you don't have to use Marie biscuits if you don't want to. If you want something crunchy, you can use a butternut snap. You can, whatever flavour you like. If you'd rather have Scotch finger biscuits, if you like it really buttery and creamy. Don't forget, this has an awful lot of butter in it as well. So you already get that buttery flavour. But whichever biscuit takes your fancy, I know people who make this with gingerbread, with ginger nut snaps. You know, those classic rock hard biscuits. I don't particularly like it that way, but this is one of those recipes you can do whatever floats your boat. So I have a crumb in my container. I have a rectangular container that is roughly, I don't know, about 30 centimetres by about 16 centimetres, 18 centimetres, something like that. Now I'm going to do this. I've got my greaseproof paper. You can see the brand I use, but greaseproof of any kind works really well. And then you scrunch it up. If it wasn't just a set and forget, if it was a baked one, I'd wet it. But because it's a set and forget, I'm not wetting the paper. You crunch it up. It's easier to fit to your container. So spread it out, plonk your crumbs in and start pushing them flat. Now, when you do the crumbs, don't be fooled into thinking, oh, they're not wet enough. You end up untying your tongue, and then you start putting more butter in, and it gets ridiculously sloppy, and then you end up with this slab of butter at the bottom. So don't be fooled, don't let it deceive you. Just seriously, so it was 180 grams of butter, and I think the Marie biscuits are roughly 250 grams still, I think. Now, use gloves if you're a bit funny about touching things, but just push it down into the corners and try and make it fairly even on top. Don't forget, this is homemade. It's not meant to look like a shop-bought one. It's meant to show that you love someone and you care about them and you've put some thought into it. Or you feel really guilty than promising your neighbour something that you haven't made in years. For those of you who know my neighbour, you know he would never hold it against me. So I'm only doing this because I did promise, and better late than never. And I know he will enjoy it. Okay, so once that is, it'll be warm because the butter was melted. Once that is, press the way you like it. While you're doing the rest, bung it in the fridge. So the next thing is to make the lemon layer. What you're going to do is you are going to get the good old can of condensed milk. Now, I'm sure those of you who've been around for a little while know that you can actually cook these and make it all yummy, and there's all sorts of yummy cheesecakey things you can make with this. One of those things that you don't mind licking out. Very, very sweet. So we have the condensed milk in there. Then we're going to add the juice of 2 lemons. Oh, just something about the smell of a lemon. Okay. Use the old muscles. Never try to get your skin in between that, that hurts. You know how much effort a person's putting in by the way they stick their tongue out between their teeth. And last but not least, numero 4. Sorry about my Italian pronunciation, Sabrina. I know it's not as good as yours. I was taught Italian by an Italian couple in our school, husband and wife. They were both teaching at our school, and they shared an office. They were the only 2 in that office. For good reason. They would fight, yelling and screaming at Italian, and quite a few of the girls at that school were Italian, so they could translate. So they would give us the translation while husband and wife are going hard at it. My locker was right outside. I got the most enjoyment out of listening to it. Learnt very little Italian. 1, 2, 3. Okay, so 3/4 of a cup of boiling water with 3 leaves of gelatin and chicken. Stir this up so it gets all... Oh, that's boiling water. Don't splash it on yourself would be my tip. Let's not be impatient. Let's wait till all the gelatin's dissolved. And then we're going to mix this gelatin mix in with this. Oh, come on, mixing. Just stand here till it mixes. Where am I going to go? Got nothing better to do? Not today. Have had my hair cut. Thank you, Sabrina. We're nearly there. Nearly getting there. Okay, here we go. We mix that in well with this, and we'll let it cool down a bit while the other mix is chilling, and then we'll pop this layer in on top of it. All right, now let that cool, because it was boiling, unlike the other stuff, it was just warm. I'm not going to do the next bit yet because then it will set way before everything else. So I'm just going to wait. So the base is chilled, and this filling has cooled right off. So you just spread it over the top. It doesn't have to be a huge thick layer. Move this out of the way. Just, that's how I spread it because it's still fairly liquid. And then you leave that set. While that is setting, you prepare the next part. I'll put it back in the fridge. Probably a good idea. Now, for the last part, you're going to make sure that the gelatin part is really well set. It needs to be thicker than just your normal jelly. So I'm using aeroplane jelly. I like aeroplane. I'll stop now. Strawberry flavour. You can do raspberry if you'd rather, or the cherry, or make it completely different, do lime. And then in that, I will put the rest of this gelatin. So that means I've used a whole 6-leaf packet. Separate them out a bit. And on top of that, I am going to pour 2 cups of boiling water. Mix it up really, really, really well, otherwise you'll end up with that gritty stuff at the bottom. And then let it get to like it's an egg white consistency, you know, that thick sloppiness. Then it goes on top of the rest of the slice. So I will use a whisk for this. Okay, so you can hear it's still boiling. You want it as hot as possible. And then the other cup, so 2 cups of boiling water to a packet of jelly. Now you really need to make sure this is well stirred. If you've ever made jelly and then you haven't stirred it properly, you know you get that thick rubbery layer at the bottom. So you really need to make sure this is well stirred. That's why I use a whisk, so that it's really thoroughly stirred up. And the extra gelatin is necessary to make sure it really creates a separate layer on top. To try and get it to cool a bit quicker, I'm going to put it in a low flat dish. Just trying to check, make sure it's all, looks like it's all set, all, you know what I mean. So to get it really cold quicker, I personally think plastic is best, but I can't for the life of me think of low flat plastic that I've got. Okay, so I'm going to put it into this long flat container to hopefully turn into egg yolk consistency faster, and I will let that cool right down, and once it's thick and sloppy, I will pop it on top of the rest of the slice that's chilling. The jelly is all soft and sloppy, which is how it's supposed to be, though it says it should be like egg yolk, which I think is a bit more set than that, but we'll see how we go. Let's have a look and see how it goes. I may have left it a little bit too long, but we'll see what happens. Do love a good bowl of jelly. It should be spreading on its own. See, it's a little bit set too much. Sorry, next door. It's not as smooth as it should be. It'll be the rough and rugged look jelly slice. Okay. I'm not going to be taking it out once it's chilled because it's going like this to next door. But we'll have to get a rating from him. I'll ask him to provide that. Hope you enjoyed that. I did have a taste of the filling. It's very lemony. So if you don't like it too lemony, I'd only use 1 lemon. But there you go. The slice that was promised years ago is finally going where it's supposed to go. Bon appetit.